Hello and welcome to the Bellingham Real Estate Podcast. I'm Paul Balzotti. I'm here with Leela Nelson-Hollcroft. Welcome, Leela.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. And this morning we are talking about real estate myths and specifically three, I'm going to throw in a bonus one, but three of the biggest real estate myths. And we will start it off with myth number one, which is you must have 20% down. And I think a lot of people know that you don't need 20% to put down, but a lot of people surprisingly still don't. Mm-hmm. And you've been in real estate for several years, joined us this year, and I want you to share, you have a great personal story about not needing to put 20% down, which is, you told me, is your inspiration.
Yep.
That got you into real estate. So
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So it is surprising how many people still think that you need 20% to put down in order to buy a home. There are so many options now for first-time home buyers or for people who have like less than perfect credit. We have, you can put 3% down. There's even, 0% down programs through, my example, USDA. My first home that I bought, which was a couple of decades ago, I was a single mom, and I was in a career before real estate. Didn't think that I was ever going to be able to buy a house for myself and my son, and I managed to get into a program actually through a land trust, which is a whole nother subject, community land trusts. But the loan that I got to buy my home was USDA rural development. And so it was 0% down, and I was able to buy my first house. And just that opportunity to give my son a stable home, because we were having to move around. We were renting and then having to move a lot. And I just wanted him to like have his own home. And so that's what inspired me eventually to get my real estate license, because I wanted everybody to have that feeling of home ownership. So there's USDA, there's VA loans if you're a veteran, FHA, 0% down, but sometimes there's a little insurance extra
premium.
Yeah. And then, but that with the FHA, that stays on the mortgage, and so you're paying a little extra there with your monthly payment. But like on a conventional loan, you can do the first time home buyer low down or no down. And then once you have 20% equity, that insurance falls off the mortgage payment. So
you typically do have that premium, and then you can usually get it removed. But it's a small price to pay to, if you wouldn't have been able to ever put that 20% down together, or maybe it would have took you 3 or 4 years to get into ownership and then start eating away and creating equity for yourselves. Absolutely. And getting yourself into what you mentioned. A lot of times for a lot of people, it's not just about trying to get rich off of real estate. It's also just about that stability of home ownership and creating the opportunity. And we should also note that, seller credits, right? So, maybe 1 out of every 4 deals we do, something around there, the seller is paying the buyer's closing costs. That's part of the negotiation a lot of times. Absolutely. And so you could save up that 3.5% down, and maybe that's 20 grand or whatever, and then or maybe it's a 0 down USDA, and then have the seller pay your closing cost. And in the last couple of years, because of how much rates have gone up compared to the uber low rates we had for a couple of years, right. It's become really popular to even buy down your rate and have a seller, pay. So when people look at even mortgage calculators, one of the things I'm reading about a lot is mortgage calculators are really not necessarily a good thing to be using all the time, because a lot of times the lender can help you buy down the rate and get the rate down a little bit and get the payment down to where it's going to make sense for a buyer. So people really have to sit down with sometimes multiple loan officers, go through a lot of education to figure out what the right program is.
Absolutely.
And to make it happen.
Absolutely. And I like what you said about multiple loan officers, because, we have some great options, and maybe one loan officer, just can't give you all of the options, and then another one might have some great ideas that they can offer you. So you can really get creative and come up with, I don't know. I just feel like there's nowadays so many different opportunities and getting sellers to help out with closing costs and things like that. You really don't have to wait until you have 20% to put down.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And so talk to multiple loan officers, USDA, FHA, and conventional, and state bond, which I guess, I think that's FHA or conventional that you can do state bond programs. And then you even brought up Colson Community Land Trust. There's affordable ownership programs. Those are a little tougher to get into, but you were able to qualify.
Sometimes you just have to get on a wait list, and it might take a year, but they help you with a huge down payment, which makes your monthly mortgage payments lower, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of thinking outside of the box and talking to someone who knows and can give you different ideas. There's so many options out there. Sometimes it's just a matter of watching a video. You have to watch a video, and then you'll get a down payment, down payment assistance. So there's a lot of opportunities.
The other thing is that it's not just the lender. It's also sometimes the realtor you reach out to, making sure that obviously you care deeply about this subject, which is one of the reasons I had it as one of the myths that we covered. But sometimes some realtors might not give you the time because you're not ready. So you got to find loan officers, realtors that are going to be patient with you. And I think that what happens is sometimes people reach out, they're not ready, they get kind of blown off, and then they get discouraged. They go sign another 1-year lease, and then that cycle continues. And so getting a team around you that's going to help you achieve your goals.
I feel like that's what just finding a team that really leads with their heart and wants to see, however long it's going to take, just get the person to the finish line.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move to myth number 2.
Okay.
So myth number 2 is spring is the best time to sell. Now, I think that with spring being the best time to sell, I think that there's no doubt that we both would agree that in the spring, it's the highest intensity of the market as far as a backlog of buyers waiting for inventory to come on the market. As those new listings come on in April, May, that can be a great time to sell. Flowers are blooming. Everybody loves their yard in the spring, and everybody loves that whole curb appeal in the spring. And so there's a lot of great things about listing in the spring, but maybe let's talk about a couple reasons why it maybe isn't always the best to sell in the spring.
So, obviously selling your house, it's a personal decision. And sometimes you just need to sell your house when you need to sell your house because you've had a life change, and that we don't get to pick the seasons for that. So I think when you're selling in the fall or winter, you're going to get more serious buyers a lot of times because those are people who are actually, they don't want to wait until spring. They need something now. So, you might get somebody who's really serious. I think that as far as when I'm representing a buyer, I actually really like looking for homes with them in the fall and winter because you get to see how energy efficient the home is. When you walk in, does it feel drafty? What's the yard like? Is it mushy?
Yeah.
Because you're really seeing it like when it's in its like worst kind of weather. And,
Well, you're talking about, because really oftentimes when you're selling, you're moving somewhere.
Yeah, right, right. So you're going to need to go buy something.
Yeah, most of the time. Sometimes people are selling to go into, a retirement home or to rent or whatever. But you're right. Most of the time, it's a sell buy.
Absolutely.
So then is the sell buy the spring the best time? It might be, it might not be.
Yep. So, it's just with as far as being a buyer, then when they're going to look for a new place, the springtime can be a little tricky because you've got a lot of competition, right? So sometimes you're getting into a bidding war. Sometimes you're needing to go pay more than the asking price, the list price.
Yeah.
So, it's really, I mean, I know it sounds cheesy, but I just feel like selling your home anytime, like we don't get to pick when we need to sell our home.
The best time to sell is the one that's right for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, you're talking about that when you just mentioned the bidding wars both ways. That is a really good point, because I think that we'll have clients who will say, well, I want to wait to sell in the spring because I want to get the most amount of money for my house.
Yeah.
Well, if they are turning around and buying, like you said,
Right.
it's kind of the same thing. Like maybe in the winter, maybe you are going to sell your house for 3% less potentially, but then maybe you're turning around and you're getting a better deal on another home. And so, if you're going to buy and sell in the same season, then you're kind of operating in the same level. As far as what your results are going to be, maybe it's a little bit better market for you to buy, but maybe a little bit less to sell. And then you also brought up another point that I'll double down on. In the spring, you do have a lot of action. It's fast paced, really busy. Maybe a little bit more looky-loos though as well. You're right. In the winter, it's a little slower. But you're right. You're going to have really only serious buyers looking at your home. We're, going into the beginning of the year right now when we're recording this. And, I oftentimes, will have sellers say, well, should I wait till April or May? If they want to move now,
now's the time you're going to get.
Always say, go ahead and list it. Go ahead and list it. Like, absolutely. As long as there's no snow. And if there's snow and ice on the road, the weekend you list, that's not good.
Right.
But if the weather's reasonable, then it could be better even.
Right. Because you might be the best one in that price range.
Yeah.
You might, with a lower inventory, you're going to stand out more, right?
Less competition.
Absolutely. On both ends.
Yeah.
Seller and buyer. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we're in agreement on that. Yeah. So sell when it's best, when the timing's best for you, and recognize the buy-sell dynamic and how that can be tricky. Absolutely.
Right.
Spring's still great, but yes, it's not necessarily always the best time to sell. Okay. Myth number 3.
Okay.
Pricing your home higher can be better to make sure that you leave room for negotiation.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So pricing your home higher is not always a great plan. This is why it's really important to have a real estate agent that you're working with that can advise you and do, comparative market analysis, tell you what the market is saying. Sometimes, what a market looked like last spring looks totally different now, right? So you really have to look at what are homes selling for in your neighborhood that are similar to yours. If you overprice your home, it's just going to sit there. And there's so much psychology in real estate and sales that, after 30 days, if your home is still sitting there, people are kind of wondering, what's wrong with it? Why isn't it selling?
Yeah.
It's really important to get the price right from the very beginning. And everybody thinks their home is, well, Zillow told me my home is worth X amount. Well, Zillow doesn't really know your neighborhood, doesn't really know what's the current, market rate. So I think it's just really important to listen to your trusted advisors and get the price right from the get-go, because if it sits too long, it really becomes sort of like tainted. It's just there's a lot of statistics behind this that basically and one of my favorite statistics, of course, is that at General Scott, the homes that we list tend to sell for more money in less time. And part of that is the presentation and the promotion and all the work that goes into those things. But part of that is into the competitive positioning of the home, because, to your point, really what a seller has to understand is if it's a high inventory environment, maybe then there's not, if it's sitting on the market a month, maybe then it's not that big of a deal. There's been years in the real estate market in the past where, it wasn't uncommon for a home to sit on the market for a month or two. But now in today's world, because of the low inventory, you have at most price points,
a lot of the homes selling opening weekend, second weekend. I think that sellers, even that are paying attention, tend to not realize how much that opening weekend and that second weekend,
Absolutely.
how hugely crucial that is. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I'm fine if it sells in 3 or 4 weeks. And we both know, and every good realtor understands that we're not shooting for week 3 or week 4.
Nope.
We really want to make it happen that opening weekend or that second weekend. And
Yeah.
it's not because we don't want to work hard and market and do all the things. It's because we know that they're going to get the highest and best offer.
Absolutely.
Those opening weekends.
Yep.
Maybe weekend 1, weekend 2, those are the big ones.
And that's just it. When you overprice a home thinking that that's going to leave room for negotiations, or maybe you'll reap, more, higher offers, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot, because if it's sitting for a long time, people are going to look at it and they're going to go, I could probably lowball that one. I could put in a low offer because it's been sitting there for 90 days. So, also it's expensive. If you're actually trying to sell your home and you didn't price it right from the start and it's been sitting there, you're still paying the mortgage, so it's costing you money.
Yeah, not just costing you money as far as holding costs, but also putting a price tag on the stress. When you have a seller if somebody's thinking about moving this year, if you think about when you price your house aggressively or just at the right market price, and then we help you get, a full price offer, or hopefully multiple offers, which multiple offers are really common. Going into this year, this spring, there's going to be a ton of multiple offers. All of a sudden now, if there's multiple offers, you're holding the cards. So the offer could go, it's the kind of non-intuitive fact that like by it being a little lower, oftentimes you're going to end up getting more money.
Yep.
But then also those buyers are oftentimes pre-inspecting the home, waiving inspection, putting in stronger deposits, and offering terms that are better for you for whatever you're doing. So if the seller prefers to have, a week to move out afterwards, if they need more time in escrow, or if they need a fast close, whatever the case may be, they have the levers then to kind of control the process because they've created that demand for their house.
Right.
So
right.
I think that is kind of something that people don't think about as much. They just think that, okay, it's either going to sell in the first week, or maybe if I price it higher, it's going to sell in 2 months. Well, no, we could be in a really bad position in 2 months, or you could be holding all the cards in a week.
Absolutely. I have a really good example of that. Just this last summer, I needed to get a house sold, and this particular client needed to get the house sold quickly, as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So we priced it just a little under what it probably could have been listed at, just a little bit under. And that created such a frenzy that I had the busiest open house I've had in years. I had so many people come that first weekend because they were so excited about the house, the opportunity, the price, everything. It ended up getting, we had a little bidding war going. It ended up going it ended up going for much over the asking price. We had a cash buyer, it was just like, it really created that, that energy just from having it priced even just a little bit under what Zillow said or whatever,
right. Yeah, under what you kind of thought it could go for. And then you ultimately, the seller actually ended up netting more than what you initially forecast, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of the art of it, right? Is when we're helping the seller get their home ready and then position it, it's ultimately their decision, because if they do go a little under, they have to be prepared for, what if we only get one offer? Is that still a number that they're comfortable with? That's the most beautiful situation, is if they're comfortable with a certain number, but it's a little aggressive, oftentimes they'll end up getting multiple offers and going over.
Right.
But you have to have them, the seller has to, as a seller, you still have to be okay with, that may not happen. It's still a little bit of a matter of a chance.
Right.
And so it's like a little bit of a risk, but oftentimes it's a lot smarter risk than the opposite risk of trying too high.
And having it sit for months and months, and then you end up just pulling it off the market, right? So,
and I think the myth also is that sellers think that we just want to lower it to sell it faster.
Right.
And no, we really just know that it's going to be better for you.
That's how it works.
And so, and you know, it doesn't mean that that we don't play a role in that, because you know, we still have to make sure that we're promoting it the right way, that we're doing the open houses, that we're doing all the work and the marketing to still create the activity and that buzz around the property that we need to have in that opening couple weekends. And you brought up the psychology of it, that we're trying to create the psychology of this new listing came on. This is a good deal.
Yeah.
And this is something you can't waste your time on. You got to run out, come see, and make a decision quickly. And hopefully you get that situation where then they're going, oh, well, I really do like this house. And clearly other people like this house. Look at all these people at the open house.
Humans are so funny.
Yeah,
like, you know, we see something that a lot of people are excited about and we think, oh, I need to have some of that too. I mean, it's just the way it works.
Yeah. And so that's kind of our job, is to help create that for the seller. So absolutely. So, okay, good. So I think we covered the big three myths. The last myth that I wanted to cover, which I've kind of touched on a couple times, is the term sales, or the word sales, not the term sales. The word sales comes from a word called salen, which is that term is actually otherwise originally the synonym for that was giving.
Oh,
And I bring that up because I think another myth is that as realtors, that, you know, realtors are great salespeople. And you're a great example of this, because, you know, I think that you're somebody, you really just, your heart's in it. You care about the people that you're serving. And we have so many realtors like that. Yeah. And, you know, those are the kind of realtors I like to work with, where their heart's in the right place. And really being a realtor is about giving, you know, your time, your energy, your consideration, your consultation to another person to help them achieve their goals. And it's not a sales job.
No.
And I don't know if you want to add on anything to that, but that I just wanted to mention that.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like it's my I lead with my heart, and for me, every client that I work with, I truly care about doing what's going to be best for them. I mean, I've talked people out of buying houses because it didn't seem like the right time for them, or it just didn't seem like it was going to be to their benefit. So, I mean, it's just, for me, it's just all about helping people. And it just goes back to the reason why I got into real estate was, you know, because I was able to buy a home and have that good feeling of creating a safe, stable home for my son. You know, that came from my heart. And so I want to give other people that. I honor that. And it is an honor to work with people and have them trust me. For me, it's just all about, my loyalty to them, and just making sure that we do what's going to be best for them, you know.
Yeah.
I believe in good karma. That's
karma is real.
Bottom line. Good karma.
I like it.
Yeah.
Good. I like it. Okay. So we'll end with that. So obviously, if you are looking for a fabulous realtor, obviously Leela, I hope you reach out to Leela. But thank you for joining me and covering these myths today.
Me.
And thank you for listening.
Happy New Year.
Yes, and Happy New Year. And thank you for watching or listening, you guys. Cheers.
Thank you.